Jonathan here from the Riverdale podcast. Today, we are talking about the Archie Babies. Look at them. Just look at them. This is a book that came out in 2011. It was the very first original graphic novel from Archie Comics. And I believe it may have been the first original graphic novel from Archie Comics because they didn't quite know what to do with it. Publishing it in issues probably wasn't quite going to work. I don't know if putting it in digest was going to work either. This is a project that kind of stalled. We heard about it for a while, and then finally it sort of got released in one big chunk like that. And I think it's sat on shelves ever since. I don't know if anybody is particularly excited about this book, but I found it at my library, and I wanted to point out that it has been read a lot. I feel like all great comic books should look like this. All comic books worth reading should be worth reading many, many, many times by many, many, many people. But there are some problems here. This is not a successful book, and that's a drag. I really wanted it to be great, and I realized after reading it, the few missteps that were made that make this not the best book. But let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Mike Kunkel is the writer on this. Mike Kunkel is known mostly for his creator-owned comic book Hero Bear and the Kid. Art Mawhinney supplies the art in this book. He is a children's book illustrator, and that's very evident from the artwork. Let's take a look at that. It's big, pretty artwork. It looks good. The panels are big, and it looks like a children's book, which is probably what they were going for. The thing that falls short is that it's not a children's book, and it doesn't read quite like a comic book either. A lot of the artwork is it just doesn't lend itself to the sequential art form. It looks a lot more like a children's book, but it has word balloons. And within the narrative, unfortunately, in addition to word balloons, it also has a lot of caption boxes that tell you what's going on in the panel you're looking at. So on a couple of different levels there, it just isn't successful sequential artwork. In sequential artwork, you want showing more than you want telling. You want to communicate as much as possible through what you're looking at. And that's where this stumbles a little bit. The second place that this stumbles in a really, really big way is character in general. The likenesses are great. The designs would be great for an animated series. The way that, Crypto told the story of Superman, or the way that the Muppet Babies look. There's definitely a Muppet Babies vibe to this, or the Rugrats, or characters like that. It looks good. But the problem is that the characters don't act like the characters, and that's an oversight that is very evident as you go through it. Archie, while a leader, isn't necessarily like the stumbling, bumbling kind of guy you want him to be. Jughead, while hungry, is not charming or fun to have around necessarily. It feels very much like the basic archetypes that make Archie great are really absent here, which is interesting because Archie has done for years these brilliant takes where they'll take a classic storybook story, a fairy tale, and they'll plug in the Archie characters, and the Archie characters work great because you know who they are, and they sort of fit into those roles really nicely. I don't know what happened here and why it wasn't successful in this particular route. It also didn't have the charm that something like Little Archie has, because it really isn't its own animal. It very much follows that sort of the sort of mold that was set by things like Muppet Babies, like the Looney Tunes cartoon that came out when they were babies. Maybe that came out around the same time as this. It just it stumbles a little bit, and it's not as true to the characters as you would have liked, as I would have liked anyway, and I think you will agree. Having said all that, it is, written serviceably. The artwork is fun. As I said, it's big, it's storybooky. And the last story in the book is actually, I think, the most effective. It was written by Ian Flynn, with art again by Art Mawhinney. And they just did a straight kind of storybook story with some prose and a single still image. And I think that's the most effective story in here. So there you go, guys. The Archie Babies. A cool piece of Archie history. An interesting thing. I'm not surprised that they haven't gone back to it. Although I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I would love for someone to dust off these character designs and do something great with them, or make up some new character designs. You know, take another crack at it, start from square one, or build off what they did here to do something great. But if you see it, if it's inexpensive, if like me, you find it at the library, certainly pick it up and take a look at it. It is a piece of Archie history. It is interesting and fun to a degree, but ultimately, I think, unsuccessful, which is a bit of a drag. But there it is, you guys, the Archie Babies.